Being 6 o'clock, I'm going to call the Coos Bay City Council meeting to order. Would you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Hey, Roger, why don't you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Roger. Welcome, everyone. First item on the agenda, first of all, I want to mention Councilor Troy Cribbins is not here this evening. He's going to try to Zoom in if he has a possibility of doing it. So we'll see how that works. Anyway, the first item on the agenda is public comments. So this would be the time to come forth and make a comment, preferably something that's not on the agenda. We do have one person that did sign up, Samuel Adams. You want to come forth and give us your commentary? Just give your name and address or where you reside, please. David?
You've got 3 minutes, and I'll put my finger up and say one.
All right, sounds good. Name's Samuel Adams. Live on California Avenue, Coos Bay. This is the first meeting I've been able to attend because of my schedule, so I have a decent amount to say. I'll bring up the stolen carts. For some reason, they're treated like nothing else. Any other item that is stolen is actually cared about. Carts don't really seem to matter. You see them on people's property, well, that's possession of stolen property, if it's on the property. These people enabling these thieves to continue doing what they're doing on their own property, they should be held accountable just like the thieves. If you're stealing carts, you should be held accountable. The camping ordinance. The purpose of that was a place, time, and manner for people to be able to rest that do not have places to live. Out on Ackerman, it's a daily problem. The police chief knows, daily problem. Those criminals are acting up left and right. City property. They don't need to stay there days on end. There's no reason for it, especially causing problems to that storage unit place that nonstop. He even offered to buy the property just so it wouldn't be city property. There's so much going on there. There's 10, 15 people that stay there every day. I drive by there all the time. And it's all they do is harass everybody around them. They're not nice people. Why are we giving them a break? And that goes for other places. But that's a very great example to bring up. Now, the Devereaux Center. That piece of property is not being held accountable for anything. Most nights, there's camping allowed that goes beyond the camping ordinance. You're allowed 3 campers. There's way more than that most nights. I walked over there a couple weekends ago. There was an outdoor water spigot left on all weekend. Why is our money going to pay for water going literally down the drain? There's countless issues with the people that are there, and this city is not holding that piece of property accountable for any of it, and it is not right. I don't know why they're being protected. I don't know why the criminal homeless are not being held accountable for what they do. I don't believe in conspiracies, but it sure looks like having homeless is profitable. And so it's better to have the homeless and profit off it than it is to take care of the actual problems. These homeless come here for some reason. You hear it on Scanner all the time. Almost every one of them are running from warrants that come from out of state or out of town. They cannot be held accountable for.
All right, thank you. I'll have some of our staff address some of it, but I can tell you that we're not trying to do things about it. But Chief, can you address some of it? First of all, I guess the Devereaux Center, and then anything about Ackerman and the storage area out there in Empire?
So yeah, obviously I'll kind of take it. The shopping cart we are providing, we're going to be bringing back some shopping cart ordinance language for you guys to take a look at and consider. There's a lot of layers to it, and So that's on the agenda. As far as the folks that are staying at Ackerman, we are addressing anything that is reported as to be a crime that's criminal in nature. We're going out there daily. I think I saw you out there just a couple days ago. And I had my captain go out there today and was working with the folks out there. We're addressing the criminal activity if there is a crime. If there's not a crime, it is a public space. They are allowed to be there. There is camping ordinance that does constrict some of the activities that they are allowed to do, like pitch a tent and camp. And we are addressing those as we see fit. Or when they pop up, we address them. In terms of the Nancy Devereaux Center allowing folks to stay on their property, the camping ordinance does allow for them to have up to 3. They are a nonprofit, and so they can have up to 3 in their parking lot. It is, we have looked into that. I have not seen more than 3. I'm not going to say that what you said is inaccurate. Maybe at times there is more than 3, but when we become aware of that, we are bringing that to the attention of the director. And so that's what we can do at this point.
So can you address do you know anything about the warrants that are outstanding for all these individuals? And, you know, I can tell you this, I don't believe that they're coming just here. They're everywhere in the state. It's, you know, unfortunately, it's a problem throughout the state and even other states. But do you know anything about the warrants for outstanding?
So everybody that we have contact with, and we have standard procedures. When we contact someone, we run them through our database. If they come back wanted, then we go ahead and start that process. We are mandated under law that we take action on warrants, and so those warrants are being addressed. Most of the time right now, the warrants, they are actually booking at the jail for warrants, and we're able to transport them out to the jail, and then they can get that warrant taken care of. There are times where they don't meet the jail criteria, and so then we are contacting the jurisdictional agency and getting the new cite date, and we are issuing citations. That's what we are required to do under the law. And so the warrants are being addressed. And can I speak one more thing about the shopping carts? We have to, the shopping carts also is the property owner's responsibility to advise us whether or not they want to be a victim or whether or not they want action taken. So we are addressing every shopping cart that we can. We are contacting the business owners, finding out if they would like to pursue charges, and we are taking action on those as well. When we're finding them abandoned, we are collecting them and we are getting them returned back to the owners, and that is efforts of the police department, fire department, and public works. So, and then there's also some nonprofit groups out there that are also going around collecting shopping carts and trying to get those returned back to the rightful owners.
Yeah, so we addressed the shopping carts at our last meeting, and there was an ordinance that was brought for us, and we didn't think it was adequate enough. We wanted to try to restrict the shopping carts to the stores a little bit more, so staff's coming back, and we're looking into it legally in ordinances, because there's nothing like this in the state, and we're hoping that we can put this together, and it will help curtail the shopping carts leaving the stores. So, we're limited what we can and can't do, and we're doing the best we can. We're always trying to find ways to do things better and still take care of the homeless, which is an issue that we have to deal with legally. And on top of it, you know, there are some things that some of them need help, and we're trying to do that in a proper way. In fact, Andrew Brainerd right here is the director for the county on the homeless issue for the city of Coos Bay, North Bend, and the county. And so hopefully all these entities working together can make a difference. So anyway, thank you for coming, and hopefully we'll see you again, and maybe with a little bit better commentary. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I do have a question on the shopping cart ordinance. Do we have a timeline when that's supposed to come back to council?
Yeah, so we'll be providing some draft language, some options at the next work session at the end of this month.
Okay. And the homeless work group worked with the police department to kind of start that process. This actually tightens up what they were discussing about a year ago, and so we think we're getting there. The Devereaux Center, if people think that there are more than the 3 because, tent or car camping, if they're confined, it's a little bit easier to tell, but I live out there and am coming home late at night. Sometimes there's multiple people under that tent area on the Devereaux property. So I'm sure that there are members of the public that are seeing that as well. If there is an issue with that, what should they do? They have a
Well,
concern.
if there's an issue, I would advise them to call into our dispatch center so we can dispatch an officer out to assess the situation and take appropriate action if need be.
So we do have a non-emergent line if it's non-emergency.
Yes, it would be the 541-269-8911.
Right. Thank you.
Couple quick bits. Is the jail still at capacity?
The jail is at capacity, and so they are balancing their 50 beds, 49 beds, but what they are doing in most cases, if it meets the criteria, they are doing a booking process, which is a much-needed process, especially for warrants.
And then for the process, when a crime is reported, it's at the DA's discretion to apportion if they're going to pursue litigation or not?
Yeah, we initiate the charges, we forward that report over to the district attorney's office, and ultimately they decide whether or not they will pursue
Okay.
the charges.
So it'll be at the DA's discretion which of those will be pursued. As far as folks in our community, I see plenty I went to high school with. It's one of the reasons I got in the fields I've been in. I've handled well over 100 case files. So I know plenty of them are from here or they've been here 5+ years. One of the problems we're going to see right now too is Friday I had a meeting with the state hospital again, and they've now gone to where they're only going to take cases for violent offenses. So anything short of a violent crime conducted by an individual with mental illness isn't even going to make it to the state hospital now. So we're going to see more folks on the streets until they hurt somebody. They're not making it up there now.
Nicole, did you have any comments?
I would just maybe add a little bit more clarity around the work we're doing with the shopping cart ordinance. We actually talked about at the staff level after the discussion we had here at council. And we recognize that it impacts potentially several departments, and so we can divvy that up. Going to look at that as far as the recommendation for potentially that electronic fence option that we are looking at. Public Works kind of looking at what does that mean in a traditional lot, like if you have to put that along the lot line, is there some permitting required there? So they're doing some investigation there. Chief's team is kind of continuing their resource, reaching out for what's happening in the community, other communities, and I think they've already done some research on systems. We have an individual who's going to be providing us, that's affiliated with one of the local stores, giving us some information on what those systems have been quoted from the store side. And then it was asked of us to also look at potential ways that we might be able to support some way financially for some of these stores. And so Melissa's gonna work on looking at where we might find capacity in the budget. It may mean that we have to put something else aside in order to do something like that. And then the city attorney's going to also look at what the current state statutes say we can do as a city and what might fit in addition to that. So it'll be maybe a larger discussion at the next work session.
I think the only point I want to make is, Chief, 9 times out of 10, the stores that the carts have been stolen from do not want to press charges, and that's correct.
Yeah, that's a fair number. Yeah.
Fair number. So quite honestly, that's how this ordinance came about, because we recognized the issue. And so I think we're hoping that we'll be able to help at least solve that problem with this new ordinance that hopefully will be coming out in the next few weeks.
We're also attacking it from another angle as well, and that is potentially expanding the property watch program that has been in place for a number of years in this community. Is there anything new with that?
Nothing new, but that is definitely something that we are considering.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
I got one more question.
Oh, sure.
It was referenced something about city money and relationship to the Devereaux Center. I was just wondering, does the city finance or have any financial connection to the Devereaux Center?
No, we do
So
not.
it's all privately funded? Just wanted to clarify.
Okay. Any other public comments? All right, hearing none, we'll continue on with the agenda. Next item on the agenda is a semi-annual presentation from the Visitors and Convention Bureau, VCB. Janice?
Good evening, Mayor Benetti, Council President DeNovo, City Council members, city staff, both in the room and up on the screen, and those of you in the audience, hello. It's always a pleasure to come and present our semi-annual report to the city of Coos Bay. We also present to our other funding partners as we are able. For those new to the council, and this is in particular for Councilman Cribbins, I just wanted to give a quick background about the VCB, the Visitor and Convention Bureau, which is the Coos Bay, North Bend, Charleston Visitor and Convention Bureau, which in some iteration began way back in the 1970s as a promotions committee to promote tourism in our area, and in its current incarnation began with an intergovernmental agreement in 2010 between the cities of Coos Bay and North Bend and the Coquel Indian Tribe. Last year we added Coos County for a area specifically around Charleston because Coos County voters approved the TLT, the transient lodging tax, and in this case transient does not refer to homeless, so I want to make sure that everybody understands the terminology that we use in travel and tourism. Lodging tax in this case for the Charleston area. So that's where we get our funding. We get a percentage based on the intergovernmental agreement. We get a percentage of all those taxes to do the work that we do at the Visitor and Convention Bureau, which is the destination marketing for our area, to get travelers and tourists to come here. Okay, so I turned it on. Oh, there we go. Oh, whoop. Okay, there we go. Want to give a quick recap of where we are as of 3 quarters. So we will not finish our fiscal year or close out the fiscal year until October. This is due to a change in collections of our lodging tax for Coos Bay and Coos County, which is done at the state level, and they are keeping the money a little bit longer than our other funding partners, the Coquel Indian Tribe and North Bend, who collect locally. So I'm giving you 3 quarters here, which shows that we are just about 83% to budget as far as income is concerned, and about 83% to budget as far as expenses are concerned. Our current budget is $1.34 million. I can tell you that our fiscal year budget for FY24, which started July 1, is slightly lower, even though we have added Charleston's lodging tax to our budget this year. And I'll get to that in just a second as to why that budget is slightly lower instead of higher with the new funding that's coming in. So a reminder of where we stand. Okay, this is not wanting to cooperate today. So I have some really great numbers to share. So are we putting the PDF up, or? Sorry about that, gang. Okay, so I won't back up. So this is a reminder of where we were pre-pandemic, in the pandemic, and then I'll give you some numbers here in a second, post-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, travelers to our county, so this is for all of Coos County, spent $277.3 million. That was a 4% increase over 2018, and I'll call out the lodging spend. This is the amount of money that was spent in our lodging properties, which was $60.7 million. The pandemic hit, and we lost $100 million overnight. We went down 35.3%. That decrease was primarily restaurants, arts and recreation, and retail. As you can see, our lodging properties did not lose that much. They were at 57.8 million, which was only about 5% decrease. And then 2021, we rebounded even more. We recovered about 22% of what we had lost in 2020. But our lodging spend went way up. Not only did we recover what we had lost from 2019, we increased it by over 15%. Income's 2022. And we have not only recovered what we had in 2019, but we far exceeded it. We increased our visitor spending, and this is travelers coming to the Coos County area, spent $295.9 million. That was a 36% increase over 21. That supports 3,600 Coos County jobs. Our tax revenues also increased. Our local tax went up not only 21% over 2021, but 31.5% over 2019. We attribute this of course, to being a desirable location, especially post-pandemic, where people could spread out. There was a lot of things to see and do, and they didn't necessarily have to be that close to other people on beaches like they are on other parts of our coast. Gas prices went up in 2022. We also saw a lot more enplanements coming in through our airport, which is a really good thing. I think 40% or so, as I recall. But that was 2022, and now we are in 2023, and we have seen a decline in travelers, but not only to our area, to the entire coast and the entire state, and probably the United States in general is experiencing this. And there's a couple of things why. Inflation and gas prices continued to go up, and international travel reopened. So not only could all of us go elsewhere, all of them are going elsewhere too, and we haven't recovered so much the international travelers coming here. So Americans are going farther afield, but we're not seeing that international travel yet return. They're a little more leery. So we hope to see that happen, which is why we budgeted a little bit more conservatively this year to bring down what our expected income is from the lodging tax, which of course is based on heads and beds. All right, so I wanted to explain what this means for our marketing. We market year-round. This year, we're going to be more fluid and nimble, which means that we are not signing year-long contracts. We're doing a lot less print, which takes a longer lead time. We are doing a more dynamic approach, which means we can choose things that come up that fit our plan or fit our needs at a moment's notice. We're doing a lot more results-focused advertising, which means that we are using more digital, more social, more online, because we can track those things. We know when a person has clicked on an ad and came to our site, how long they stayed, what pages they saw, and where they went after they left our site. So did they go to the Mill? Did they go to the Best Western? Did they go to Bay Point Landing to book a room? Now, we can't tell you if they booked. All I can tell you is that they went. We don't get that kind of data. Market analysis information, we were using, as some of you may recall, cell phone data that we were getting from a company called Datafy. We got what we feel is a good representation of the information that we needed, which told us that Seattle is our number 5 market to our area. Portland is still number 1, and some other data like that. We are switching how we are looking at that data and going with a different company that can not only tell us the Coos County numbers, so the numbers I gave earlier were Coos County. We'll be able to take those numbers and do Coos Bay, North Bend, Charleston alone. That'll give us an opportunity to give you a better idea of our return on investment, what we spend and what visitors spend in our 3 communities. So we're looking at that this year. Our public relations efforts have really exploded. I'm going to do some show and tell, and I apologize for those on the screen because you won't be able to see this really. I have a book like this for every year that I have been in my job. The first half is every ad that we have placed that I could get a copy of. That includes sponsored content. So a lot of times we write an article and pay for its placement, and that is very effective for us. The rest of this book is paid, unpaid, or what we call earned media. So these are things that people wrote about us that we didn't pay for. They came, they visited, or they just like us enough to write about us. This is the size binder I have for the last 5 years. This year, I needed a supplemental binder, because this is more articles written about us that didn't fit in my binder that has fit for the last 5 years. So our PR efforts are really working, and PR means getting written about where you don't pay for it. So we're doing really well in that respect. So the other things that we're looking at is consistent exposure, which is having ads placed all year round. We also, as you guys know, went through a strategic planning process this year, and part of that is increasing our visitation, but having them stay longer. So a lot of our ads and our strategy is to do that, to keep them here longer. Our social media is always gangbusters. The next one is what I think people are surprised about. Prefontaine is still one of the #1 search terms that brings people to our website. I think we had like 42,000 visits to our website last year from people searching Prefontaine. So that is still a big thing for us. And so we are focusing some of our efforts on running events, and the activities like the Wednesday night runs where our visitors could go running with a local. So we're going to be promoting that. The last one is our brand. So we are Oregon's Adventure Coast. Those who don't know us think that we promote the entire coast, because they hear Oregon, adventure, and coast, and that seems like that would be good for everybody. So we have been really concertedly working on making sure that they understand that Coos Bay, North Bend, Charleston, we are Oregon's Adventure Coast. And that's our tagline on most of our ads, our TV ads. So that's an important part of what we've been doing. These are just some ads that we've been placing lately. We did a crab cake bake-off, where it wasn't crab cakes, it was actually cakes, and we had a really good return on that. This picture on the far right is Horsefall. And as you can see, there's not a single soul in that picture. We're using this ad in Portland to help them to see that they don't have to go straight across to a crowded beach. They could come maybe a little bit further south and enjoy the south. Empty beaches. We did a 2-page spread on food with Northwest Travel and Life, because food is a big part of what we are doing, and they were doing a whole issue just on food. So we paid for this 2-page spread, and it got a lot of attention. We also do a lot of event planning, event advertising, as well as special things like Earth, Wind, Inspire, which was our forest bathing campaign. We do a lot of digital, we do a lot of billboards. So if you're ever driving around the state, you might see our billboards. This, for the council, just gives you an idea of our cadence of when we're promoting things. We do a lot of event promotion. We give a lot of extra effort to some of those events that are happening year-round, but we also have campaigns like our fishing, our dunes, and kayaking, and all those adventures that we promote. So this just gives you an idea. The next one will show you kind of where we place these ads. As you can see, Portland gets everything, Eugene gets everything, all of Oregon gets everything, but we pick and choose some of the other locations that get some of our advertising. And we do billboards and trade shows and a lot of other activities. The last thing, one of the last things that we did this year as part of our strategic plan was to add stakeholder communications, which allows us to talk to our industry here. We encourage everybody to sign up for this newsletter. You'll hear information about what's happening not only in our industry locally, but other things in the area that affect our industry. So we hope that you'll sign up for that. If you don't have a chance to scan the QR code, you can always contact us at the Visitor and Convention Bureau at the Coos Bay Visitor Information Center. And lastly, this is my last slide, I wanted to give you the year-end statistics for the fiscal year for the Coos Bay Visitor Information Center. In that time, we had 18,253 visitors walk through our door. 3,000 volunteer hours were put in by our multitude of volunteers. We sold 26,000 almost in merchandise. We have a lot of great merchandise at the Visitor Center. We also get leads from Travel Oregon. These are people who specifically signed up to get our information. They didn't ask for just general information of Oregon. They didn't ask for general information of the coast. They asked for our information, and we sent 12,566 of those out in a year. And then we also handle relocation. So when somebody is looking to move here, we send them a relocation packet that includes a chamber directory, a map, a guide that we put together of relocation information that people need to know. Who's our city council? How do you set up your electricity? Where's the hospital and the other medical? So that's a document that they get from us. So we send out quite a few of those. And if anybody needs one of those, you're always welcome to come by the Visitor Center and pick that up. And that is my presentation this year.
So any questions for Janice?
I have, are you on TikTok?
We are on TikTok.
Cool.
Yeah, we're on TikTok, Thread, Facebook, and Instagram. We got rid of Twitter.
There's a lot of travel stuff on TikTok that is appealing.
Yes, yes, and we've got, I have a contractor who handles our social media, and she is going to be here in market in the next week or so, and she's planning to take a lot of TikTok video.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I also want to say thank you for the support you provided for the walking map for the wayfinding signs. I love them.
Thank you. Yes, that's a project that was near and dear to my heart as well, because we really believe that wayfinding in our community is as important to our community members as it is to our visitors, so that they can get around. And now I would like to turn the dais over to City Council President, Council President, yes, that's your title, Lucinda Deneau,
Yes, thank
who
you,
is also
Sarah.
the chair of the VCB and the chair of the Oregon Tourism Commission.
Thank you. Roger, you know we want to embarrass you, and since you are no longer on the VCB board, our new city manager, Nicole Rutherford, has taken that seat. We would love for you to join Janice down at the podium so we can recognize you for your service. You, Roger, not Nicole. Yeah, but I was going to read my little spiel to Roger. So, Roger, as I said, we wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for your 8 years of service on the board. You have always been a champion of tourism, recognizing the economic impact it makes to our community. Under your leadership, you've assisted in hiring the very talented Executive Director, Janice. I think that was one of our most brilliant moves. You've helped create more stability within the organization and a stronger intergovernmental agreement amongst the funders. When you joined the board in 2015, our budget was $338,000. As Janice reported out today, it's $1.3 million. And ultimately, that, as Janice reported out, visitor spend in 2022 was $295.9 million, a 36% increase over 2021 and an 18% increase over 2015. You have been a constant source of institutional knowledge, and we thank you for helping the organization continue to realize its full potential. Thank you.
So I don't know, maybe I can still. All right, so the plaque reads, presented to Roger Craddock, in appreciation for 8 years of outstanding leadership on the VCB board and support of our tourism economy, July 2023.
You might as well stay down there, Roger, And Troy's online, so just want to recognize that Troy is joining us this evening.
I've been watching intently.
Okay. Well, it's it's a pleasure, but it's also sad that Roger will be leaving us. And so I would like to highlight some of Roger's comments that he made in his separation notice outlining his career to the city council and the staff. And it states, "Little did I imagine in 1991, when I was sworn in as a reserve police officer for the Coos Bay Police Department, that it would turn into a career with the city of Coos Bay. Over the last 32 years, I have been given many opportunities and worked in a number of positions alongside some amazingly talented and dedicated employees and elected officials. It has been my honor and privilege over the last 15 years plus of my career with the city to serve originally as the city's police chief and most recently as the city manager. While serving as the city manager and through the collective work of our professional staff and committed elected officials, much has been accomplished." And that's an understatement. It's been a collaborative effort. Without Roger at the position he was, it just wouldn't happen. Also, I want to mention that he's been the longest city manager serving for the city of Coos Bay. So Roger, thank you. Thank you doesn't begin to say enough about what you have done as a city manager. I've enjoyed working with you, as I know the rest of this council and staff have. So many goals, projects, and phone calls. Phone calls any time of the day, any day, even on vacation, we get them. Your priority has always been with the city of Coos Bay and its citizens. Thank you for the 32 years of service. You will be missed. Thank you, Roger. We'll let you make some comments. But the plaque says, "In appreciation for your leadership, commitment, and countless contribution to the city of Coos Bay, Roger Craddock, city manager from 2009 to 2023.
Thank you. I have some comments, but I wrote them down on that computer.
Well, we're fluid. We can request.
I have one page for every year.
Oh, wow.
Yay!
So Nate, there's no time limit?
I can get through this in 5 minutes. They're good letters. It really has been my pleasure and honor to work here at the city of Coos Bay and for the citizens of this great community. And you can tell I took some of this from my previous one. Little did I imagine when I signed on to become a reserve officer in early 1991 that I would get the opportunity to become a full-time officer, because that really was not my intention. My intention was to get full-time officers to work for me in an armed car service. But never, things don't generally go as planned. And so I became a full-time officer because I loved it. Later, I got the opportunity to be a sergeant, then a captain, and then my dream job as a police chief at arguably the best police department in Oregon. Many of my law enforcement peers thought I needed a fitness for duty evaluation, and that's also known as "Are You Crazy?" exam, when I agreed to leave the police department to become the city manager. But to be honest, I thought it was the council that really needed the fitness for duty. In retrospect, after moving over, I realized how much I didn't know. I think Nicole is going through that right now. But to be honest, I was able to be successful as a city manager because of the department directors and their management team who were all in their own right subject matter experts. I couldn't have done it without that original team and those who followed them. With the exception of Jim Hosley, our public works director, and Nate McClintock, our city attorney, all of our department heads that were there when I first started have come and gone. And many of the middle management team has come and gone as well. While they moved on, we were able to recruit what I believe is a dream team of directors and middle managers. Over the last 14 years, I've had the pleasure of working with 3 different mayors, 7 different council presidents, and about 30 different city councilors. I have shared many times with my fellow city managers
I had any regrets, it's the toll that it has on town. Till I do business. The long hours, living life in a fishbowl, aren't for the faint of heart. I am most grateful to my caring wife and my family. My family well knows this is more than a job to me, it's my calling. But it is time to move on, as it will be for all of us. Someday, you still have more time. I am extremely confident in the skills and abilities of whom the council has chosen to be your next city manager. I have every confidence in Nicole, along with those of her management team here at the city, to do what's best for the citizens we all serve. I leave here a much different person than when I came. I leave with more friends, far less hair, a few more pounds, and a host of memories, and even some battle-honed skills, which I hope to put to good use in my next adventure. God bless you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on. The rest of our agenda won't be so exciting, or caring, or emotional, and all those things above. Consideration to approve purchase of a used dump truck. Jennifer?
Yeah, how do you follow that? Okay, I'm gonna try. So the city's water quality team has a 1992 dump truck. The dump truck is over 30 years old and past its useful life. It also has capacity for only 5 cubic yards of material, which is smaller than the standard size dump truck, which is 10 cubic yards. The water quality team has been doing a significant amount of repairs over these last couple of years, both to the storm and sanitary sewer system. And to better increase their efficiency, they are proposing to purchase a dump truck that is newer and has capacity to haul the full 10 cubic yards of material. In researching, they have determined that it would be more economical to purchase a used vehicle. However, every time they find one that suits the needs, it quickly sells before they can obtain 3 quotes, which is a requirement of our procurement and purchasing rules. Because of this, staff is recommending direct appointment through emergency procurement. So the city may enter into a public contract without competitive bidding when the circumstances that could not reasonably be anticipated necessitate the prompt establishment and performance of the contract in order to preserve public funds, property, or the uninterrupted provision of government services. So the preservation of public funds and the uninterrupted provision of government services are what will be impacted. The city could purchase a new truck and obtain 3 quotes. However, it would be double the cost of a used one. And the current dump truck is in constant need of repair, which decreases the number of repairs the city's water quality team can complete. Based on research by staff, a used dump truck that meets the specifications would be approximately $125,000. So if council agrees with staff's findings, the following items must be met per the city's purchasing and procurement rules. So number 1, obtain to the maximum extent reasonable informal quotes. So staff has been compiling costs for used dump trucks. While they're not available anymore, they do show on average what a competitive purchase cost should be. So number 2, make written findings that support the impact to public funds and government services if staff cannot directly purchase a dump truck. So if the city purchased a new truck, it would be double the cost of a used one. And the current dump truck is in constant need of repair, which slows down or even prevents staff from doing their job. Number 3, document findings, the quotes obtained, and the reason for selection. So this can be provided by staff should council desire to purchase a used dump truck through emergency procurement. So this was a planned budget, or a planned purchase in our budget. So the funds for this purchase will come from the Water Quality Fund 3 capital outlay for vehicles. It'll be spread evenly across the 4 funds for Plant 1, Plant 2, Collection Sewer, and Collection Storm. So I can answer any questions you have.
Questions, anyone? Hearing none, how would you like to proceed?
I move that we approve the purchase of a used dump truck in accordance with Resolution 22-02, Section 11, titled Emergency Contracts for an amount not to exceed $125,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 2202 of purchase of a dump truck. Are there any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer, next item on the agenda is approval of a collective bargaining agreement with the Coos Chapter International Association of Firefighters, Local 2935. Nicole?
Yes, thank you. The labor agreement between the City of Coos Bay and the Coos chapter of the International Association of Firefighters expired just this June 30th. Members from both the bargaining union or from both bargaining teams, both the city and the fire union, recently completed a negotiated successor 3-year agreement. The proposed fiscal year 2023 through 2026 collective bargaining agreement has been ratified by the members of the local union and now is presented to you for your approval. The CBA between the city and the collective bargaining agreement between the city and the fire union is provided in your packet, both in legislative format, so you can see those changes and then what that looks like cleaned up. And then I just wanted to share just, a few of the more significant. We had several clerical kind of changes throughout that, not really necessary to bring up, but essentially where we kind of landed through several months of working through this in a middle ground. First year COLA increases for the firefighter engineer level employees is 4.5%. We base our COLA off of the CPIW West BC class, which is a Portland-based schedule. And then we had done some compensation study work prior to entering into negotiations, and so we already knew that our firefighters lieutenant level was above market average. We felt fairly comfortable with where we stood there, but the lieutenants were on the lower side of market average, and so we did believe there was room to accommodate a little extra there. We landed on giving them 5.5, the difference from the 4.5 for the firefighters. For the following 2 years, we do our agreements on 3 years. We have 3 separate employee groups, represented employee groups, so we try to do one a year. Thus, we do a 3-year contract for each of those employee groups. For the second and third year of this agreement, we're using a range based, again, back on that CPI from 1.5 to 4%. It kind of gives us a way to budget then in those future years. I guess the other couple of significant things that I would talk about in that agreement, we added a little bit of an incentive amount, 0.25% to the hazmat team percentage. We're recognizing maybe a decrease in interest, so we're hoping to incentivize that a little bit more and get some more folks involved in that. And then recently we've asked of this team to do some confined space work with bringing on the water quality team. There was some necessity to have some training in entering confined space, so like going into a manhole to potentially do a rescue. And then we do have folks on the rope rescue team. Again, that's a community kind of team, but recognizing those as life safety issues for those individuals who would be performing those rescues, we wanted to incentivize that as well. We did add a 5% while in those approved duty times, those hours that they're activated. And additionally, we added same 5% while activated for drone. We have seen that we've been using drones both for city functions, but also for emergency kind of response things. And so we recognize there's also a life safety issue there too. So, and then the last kind of significant thing, which was really just an alignment to some of what the other 2 bargaining units already had in their contracts, was a change from the workers' comp What the city currently does for them is for the first 90 days, if they're out on workers' comp, if for those who don't know, workers' comp essentially pays you 66 2/3 while you're off duty related to a work injury. And the city makes you whole, so they cap you to what you would have been if you'd been working for that 90 days. The other two bargaining units had 180 days, so we just made that equal to, so we're all on the same playing field again. So if you had any questions, those were really just the key components. Again, there's some other little small things in there, some cleanup stuff, but if you had questions, be happy to answer.
I'm just glad that the fire department and the city were able to negotiate this. We've had a good record of doing this, which is really wonderful. Keeps morale best and without going to arbitration and having go down that road. So thank you for the work that the staff's done, specifically you and the chief. So I think you were involved. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Nicole? Okay, that being the case, what do we need? Let's see here. You need us to adopt. You have a contract for us to adopt here?
I'll move to approve the collective bargaining agreement with Coos Chapter IAFF Local 2935 for 2023-2026.
Second.
A motion and seconds, approval of the collective bargaining agreement with the Coos Chapter IFF Local 2935 for 2023 through 2026. Any other comments or discussions? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Thanks. Okay, city manager's report. Who's doing what here? Okay.
Thank you. So the first thing I wanted to update you guys on was that from the last meeting, you referred the question around the library survey back to the Library Steering Committee. And the committee met yesterday, actually. And from that, pretty good discussion. And we do have Adam Probolski on, if there's any questions, just to follow up here. But from that, the steering committee recommended, you asked a couple things of them, to recommend at which election we might go back out for a bond, and then to identify a preferred site, as the survey didn't quite get us to a preferred site, and then finally what an educational community discussion might look like. So the committee met, and they were in agreement that a November 2024 bond placement on the ballot was appropriate. They, much like the discussion was with council, it was a little bit of a challenge to pick a site. It didn't clearly stand out. So their recommendation was to put an advisory vote on the November 23rd ballot, which would place their recommendation was the three properties that we were looking at. We obviously know the park location was not an option, to place that out there for the public to respond, and in hopes to identify which one site that we can move forward with, and then tailor our community conversations around that moving forward. So we did ask Mr. Popolski to attend in case there was any questions on what an advisory vote might look like, or results of something like that, the difference maybe from a survey. I guess the questions you guys might have would be different than that, but he is available if you do have questions.
Okay, well, I'll start, and I guess, Adam, if you want to chime in, or any of the council, or even the board members from the library, I think going out for an advisory vote is fine. That's something that I've suggested in the past. But going out for an advisory vote for 3 libraries, I think is going to be very confusing. It could be, in my opinion, we might end up in the same dilemma we have, not knowing which location is going to be chosen. I would suggest that we do 2. The ones that I had asked questions about, I think would be pertinent, would be downtown and Ocean Boulevard. Those would be the 2 that I would suggest. I would ask Adam to see how he wants to chime in. I think this comment needs to be, or this advisory comment, would need to be clear. Downtown or Ocean Boulevard, give the cost on both, make it pretty simplistic so people don't get confused with a lot of the other things that might be pertaining to it. That's my comment. I'm not sure how anyone else feels. And Adam, I'm not sure how you feel. My other concern was, you had advised us for going out for 2024 vote. This representation in 2023 in November, will that be enough of a representation that would equal 2024? Because that's what you had suggested. We have a younger demographic that would be participating, and plus it'd be a presidential election.
So as far as location, that's obviously, a policy decision. You all get to choose. Those are the two locations that certainly stood out in the survey as having the most support. So that sounds, has some logic to it, certainly. The profile of the voter in 2023 will look quite different than the profile of the voter in 2024, but they are voters, they are, Coos Bay voters. So I think that there's also a logic to, if that was a decision to pursue an advisory vote, to ask the question. But it would definitely be a different group of people that show up. But everybody has certainly had the chance. Everyone had the chance to give a response.
Can you tell me that how you feel the advisory vote will impact the vote in 2024 to the voters? If the advisory vote comes out and says we support X, how that will be represented in 2024? Will that be a positive, you think, and be an influencer?
My only concern is that if your advisory vote comes back with an answer in November this year, and for whatever reason, not because you don't want to follow through with what the voters think or prefer, but perhaps some new information comes up where it costs more, or there's some other detail where you decide to pursue a different location, that may be, perceived maybe not so well by the voters. But I don't see any impact of the vote in November this year on the vote of 2024 specifically, other than that possibility.
Just one comment, then I'll let the rest open up. I think if we go out for the advisory vote and that vote comes back for whatever location, I think we are obligated, and it's necessary that we go ahead with that location in 2024. Anyway, other comments from councilors?
I was going to say that I'm usually not a big fan of advisory votes, but I am for this case, and I really think we should put the 3 up, not just 2, because it wasn't clear. Clear decided between one or the other. But I'm in favor of the 3 locations. All this is going to do is provide another opportunity for us to provide education to the voters out there on the costs of each location as well. And we have to be pretty significant in our educational things that we do leading up to 2023, because we did see that some of the information that came back on the survey is the more that people knew about the cost, or the cost of losing the library, had an impact on that we need to do something. So I think it's incumbent on us to make sure that we do a very thorough educational campaign on the costs associated, because there is such a significant cost difference between downtown and any other location.
Sarah?
I'm just concerned that it could be confusing,
Which
the advisory vote. I'm not sure that everyone is, we have some really, really informed citizens, all of you who are here today, and we see you here often. We also have some citizens who are not as informed, and we don't have a lot of experience in the city of doing advisory votes,
So I guess my question, follow-up, if we don't do the advisory vote, then we would have to choose the location. And how would you suggest we do that?
well,
I don't
know,
mind to be
Joe.
put, I hate to put you on the spot. I know, because I've wrestled with the same
Yeah.
thing. I tried to get clarification from Adam on some content on the survey that I thought might make a difference, but I know that downtown has always been a consideration by citizens, and that seems to be something that they're very strong about or passionate about, those ones that support it. So, all right, so if we go out for an advisory vote, and I'm not trying to push you to say that, but if we do, are you suggesting that we do 2 or 3? Or
2.
4?
2.
We can put the John Thomas back.
I think
I'm
we need
kidding.
to make it as
I'm
simple as
kidding.
possible.
All right. All right, Lucinda.
I'm okay with the advisory vote. I think I've said over and over again, we have, in my mind, one more opportunity to get this right. I believe, though, that it should only be 2 locations. And I felt like the survey told us that the 2 locations were either Ocean Boulevard or the existing location. My concern is if we add that 3rd location, we're going to split the vote. And we're going to be in a situation after that where it's like, oh, okay, and we will be in the same place where we're at today, and we can't decide. Potentially, even with 2 locations, we might be in that same situation. And I completely agree with the mayor that whatever the citizens decide, we need to honor that vote and build the library where they want it to be. So, from my perspective, great on the advisory vote. I completely agree with you, Mr. Mayor. This is one location. This is the cost of that location. This is the location on Ocean Boulevard. This is the cost of that location. Plus one other caveat to that is if we put it on Ocean, it also allows us to have a emergency location if we were to have a tsunami or an earthquake. So those are really the elements for me, because we saw that there was in the survey that people appreciated that the Ocean Boulevard site offered that. So thank you.
Carmen?
Yeah, I think advisory vote, it's on. Yeah, we tried to pick a spot and that didn't work, so let's hear what everybody has to say and we'll just go with that.
2 or 3?
I have my own personal opinion about where it should be, and I'm going to listen to whatever goes through, and I think, God, I really, that's a tough one.
There's no wrong answer.
No, I am split, so I guess I'll go with whatever.
Okay, Drew?
We as a council decide.
Benefits of going last, I gotta use everybody else's good
You got Troy
ideas.
still, so you won't be total last.
Ah, bummer. So to Lucinda's point, I think 2 is a good idea. To Sarah's point, I can see where this could be confusing. We saw it in the survey. If you just ask location, overwhelmingly downtown. If you ask in the comprehensive fashion, then they were good, well-formulated questions. When it came to location and money, they kept it comprehensive but concise, and under that, the downtown came in fairly low. I think it came in 3rd. In those questions, no site came out clearly favored. None of them cracked 50% approval. But the Ocean Boulevard site, if you added uncertain with yes, was the only site that came out in the positive. So that definitely has to be on the chart. And then downtown, because a lot of people want to spend an extra $7 million. That's
13.
Troy?
Yeah, I realize I'm pretty new to the process, but I feel like and I will go with the vote. That being said, I mean, I feel like you have a survey that kind of indicates the 2 are there, and maybe that's incumbent on us just to make that hard decision, but you guys have already been through that. So if we decided to do the survey vote, I mean, I would be okay with it. I think it should just be 2, and it should be just a fairly simple choice, this place or that place, and then, you get a broader spectrum of people's opinions, and we can make a decision from that. But I mean, if it was me, I would take the survey, and we would sit down and make a decision. That's my 2 cents.
Well, Troy, if we do the advisory vote, you said 2, which 2?
The top 2.
Well, they were really close. So you had, as Drew stated, if you put things together, I think Ocean was like the top one, like my understanding. And then I think, I'm not even sure if that, I think downtown was number 3, to be truthful with you.
Yeah, I think though, just because downtown has come
location,
up
though, I
so
think,
much, we have to include it.
Right.
Right. So yes, based on that, I'm saying downtown and Ocean.
Okay. And Sarah, I didn't ask you which 2 you thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's really clear that the park is out,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Well, so would you suggest Ocean and downtown or the Newmark? Okay, Ocean and downtown. All right, so Bob, anyone from the Library Steering Committee want to make a comment?
I do. As a member of the steering committee, I think it's important that you get a little bit more of the discussion we had, because our discussion when we talked about limiting it to 2 in the advisory vote, Ocean Boulevard was not one of them. And that was pretty much unanimous amongst the group, that our 2 choices were the Newmark site and downtown.
Because of you liking those locations?
Well, you could charge me with that, and I certainly wouldn't deny it, but there were a number of reasons why, besides my own personal biases, and those reasons include that the Ocean Boulevard site is not appropriate site for a library, number 1, but number 2, we have no control over the parking lot. And we don't own it. Well, we don't own any of it, but that parking lot is not part of the parcel that's for sale. And it really has a lot of limitations to it, from that standpoint. And I'm sure we could come up with a number of other reasons as well.
And I totally understand. But again, I'm really hesitant, Bob, of putting my personal feelings into this. I did that last time. And,
I just did.
So I understand. So, that's why I'm looking at the survey and what it brought in as the best choice. And that was, by all accommodations, Ocean Boulevard was the number 1 choice. And then Newmark was number 2, and then downtown was number 3. That's how I saw it. I thought it might even be more if you put in the 6.5% as an evacuation center would up one of those 2. So I even thought that might be more. So anyway, that's where I'm coming from. The other thing is Newmark is close to the other site, and it's also across from the college, and we got dinged on both of those comments last time with the librarian, John Toppitz, rightfully so or not. It's commentary that I heard. So anyway.
Just a question
Go
for
ahead.
clarification. Did the survey also, when they were doing the survey, did they indicate that a portion of that property would never be owned by the city, the parking lot? Was that included?
I didn't see it in the survey.
No.
I don't think the average citizen cares, to be perfectly honest, and I don't mean
Until
to,
they can't use the parking lot.
well, I guess I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but we have been down the road of, with a short period of time, picking an alternate location, and here we sit. And so I get your perspective, Bob, but I think ultimately, at this point, I just want a library, and I think you do as well. I don't care where it's located. I don't care if the parking lot is owned or not owned. We have a library, as you have told us and others have shown us, that is sinking, and it's at some point we're going to lose it. So I guess for me, the appeal of doing this advisory vote and getting it down to 2 locations is hopefully we will have information that clearly tells us where the citizens of this community want that library, and then we can move in that direction, because that's still a big ask as well. I think we've learned a lot, right, in the last few years through this process. I think Adam can help us with an education campaign, and I hope I'm sitting here in December or late November, and we're having a conversation next year of we have the bond passed and we have a library.
Well, ultimately, it's the council's decision, and I certainly will step aside to that. But I think that the discussion that we had at the steering committee meeting, I wish we had actually been able to play you a tape of it, because we had a very interesting discussion about the pros and cons. And what we finally decided to forward to you was that the advisory vote should include the 3 sites. So that was it.
The 3 sites meaning Ocean, Newmark, and downtown. Thanks.
Not Toppers Park, yeah.
So explain to us how this parking lot works with the library on Ocean.
So the parking lot itself is owned by Cascade Farms or their parent company, which is Bimart. But there is an easement and for use of the parking lot. What's up in the air is not whether you can use it or not. It'll be what's your share on an annual or every so often period about parking lot maintenance.
Right.
I think when we looked at putting the bids together on, what's it going to cost to build there, we assumed that we would actually, with part of the bond fund, go out and try and purchase a portion of the parking lot so that we would know what our costs are moving forward. Put the capital cost up front and then do the maintenance as needed on our own property.
Right. So there'd be a cost associated either way, whether we owned it or whether we're paying a maintenance fee. You do something similar to that at Coos Bay Village, do you not?
Yes.
All right, so how do we want to proceed on this? Adam, you have any more comments on this, one way or the other? 2, 3, the 2 that we, Ocean Boulevard downtown, or any wise wisdom of words and direction?
You're paying me and you're asking me, so yeah, sure, I'll tell you, I think that 2 options are probably the ideal scenario for a ballot, and I would say that the poll does, bulk up there with those 2 options, and so I think that makes it a logical thing to present to the voters if that's the direction you're going. And then just as long as we have the, I don't know how much outreach effort you're going to do from City Hall on the advisory vote, but just as long as we have a robust budget for November 2024, that's the only other thought I have, but excited to see what you all decide.
So that's another question. So have we contemplated on how we're going to present this advisory vote? Make sure it gets, as Adam said, out in the public?
As far as getting it on the ballot or just communicating?
Promoting it, making sure people are aware of it.
So we did talk a little bit about education, for the community at the steering committee and kind of expanding that scope. What we did learn is, people get, it's kind of a double-edged sword. We were uncertain in relying on the survey for several elements, but we were comfortable relying on it for the information related to how people get their news. So social media, big deal. So using that, we learned that they would be happy to get something tangible in the mail for them to read. So using those resources, obviously we know from last time we need some more folks on the ground, making direct connections with people. So we talked about those. We haven't really talked with Adam as far as what that looks like between now and the advisory versus maybe they step in afterwards once we know where we're going. They come in. I think he's working on what those costs kind of look like. So that will be a challenge, obviously, if we're going to go look to their firm for help in both areas. But I think we have a good idea of ways we can start talking about this in the community a little bit more across the scope, and then more frequent, and in obviously all the ways they get their news.
So are you also thinking about using Adam's expertise in this advisory vote?
Yeah, so we were going to talk, once we know what we're doing here, a little bit about, whether he has just like an idea of how that walks forward, if their team's playing a part in that. Obviously those are things we need to talk about as far as cost goes. But definitely pick his brain for any recommendation that he might provide.
So as your new role, do you have a suggestion or an advice on which way to go here?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I know.
I appreciate that you stepped up and talked a little bit more about the conversation, because we did have some really good conversation around the Newmark location, the opportunities that would be available there that would not fit as nicely in the Cascade parking lot area. For example, if we were looking at, and we just floated this, bringing in a housing element. I think we talked about this maybe briefly about the Cornelius library model that has second floor housing. We know we're short of housing. That opens up different funding doors potentially. So that area lends to that because you've already got housing in that area. It doesn't really fit in the other site. So, I think things like that, it gave us different opportunities in that space that maybe just felt out of place in the other location. That's why it made it, for the 3 to go there. And we talked about how we present that information in this advisory vote, that, location, amount, and what could be there, very simply, obviously, so that it would kind of help hopefully pinpoint what the community is most looking for.
Okay. Anyone else from the steering committee, from the library, want to comment on it? Sammy, anyone? Okay.
So both the Ocean and Newmark sites are for sale right now. What happens if they get bought?
Well, I think
Take 'em off the ballot.
after the advisory vote, I would suggest, or I would probably take the recommendation of our staff, that we probably would make an offer pending, like we have done on to other properties, go into an agreement with them with, an option to purchase under certain circumstances, one being the bond would have to pass. And maybe there would be a payment where we would put down and hopefully we lose it, if that was the case, so.
But we could be in a situation where it goes out for advisory vote and it's purchased while the
Could.
vote is out.
It could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if we're only putting forward 2, then we would have that extra.
We would have that extra one.
So many situations. Okay, we need to decide. We've been down this road again, and so who wants to start? Because last time I did. That's the last John Tompkins one. So anyway, how do we, you already heard me, I think we should do 2 and the 2 that we should do. Do you want to do that, or do you want to do something different?
I'm leaning towards 3.
3?
2. And the reason I say 2, sorry, Carmen, is, again, while I appreciate the conversation that was had, and I appreciate the opportunities for housing, once again, we are confusing the conversation. And I, again, will say over and over again, I feel like this is our last opportunity to get this. And so I don't want to confuse it anymore. And that's why I'm so passionate about the 2 locations. The tragedy of this, in my mind, is we had a piece of property on Ocean Boulevard and we sold that piece of property. And that, for me, will forever be the tragedy, because, not because I want to be right, but I'm really hoping that the voters are compelled to pass this bond ultimately, because this library is so important to this community. And while I appreciate all the conversation about that 3rd option, it once again just confuses it that much more, and I don't think it allows us to get to the place where we need to be, which is to build a new library.
True.
Still looking at 2. I don't actually like the Ocean Boulevard site myself, but the data came back with what the data is, and I'm nothing if not a pragmatist. Because the Cornelius Library on Newmark, I had gone and looked at the Cornelius and brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
They've got 4 floors of senior housing on top of their library. It's an awesome thing, but we have to have a clear winner in the vote. So 2 is the only way that's going to happen.
Sarah?
Yeah, I agree. I don't like Ocean. I think that there's access issues. If we did that, I'd love to see us go down to 1 lane on either side and put in bike lanes on both sides of the road, which I think would be really cool and add access to Empire. I think that I agree with Lucinda. I think the Newmark location is wrought with a lot of the things that we heard from the Toppets location. I don't like Ocean either, though.
Stephanie?
I'm sticking with 3, and I'll tell you why. Because Toppets is out, and I think we need to present the options to the community that it was too equal across the board. I mean, we can all say the undecided can fit in there, but it could be a 50-50 split, which would just leave it where it is. I think we need to give people the options of the 3 that were clearly out there still after Toppets was eliminated.
Troy?
I'm strongly too. If we put it out for a vote, we need to make it clear and simple. Us weaning in from the 3 to 2 is part of the decision-making process that we're elected to do. So I would keep it at 2. I'm going to keep my personal opinion of which location I like best out of it. So.
Yeah, but are you, for the 2, are you still sticking with Ocean Boulevard and downtown, or did you want to change that?
Yep.
Okay.
No, those are the 2 that came out on the top, whether it's by a great deal or not. Those are the 2 that came to the top.
Okay, so under
And that should be the clear choice.
under that scenario and the commentary we've heard, so it's for the 2 choices, it's going to be Ocean Boulevard and downtown, unless anyone disagrees with my perception of that. And then we, as a council, because of the time constraints on November of 2023 to make the deadline for the advisory vote, we need to come back by August.
Yeah, so the state election calendar has a August 9th filing with the governing body, so which, is not between the next meeting date. It doesn't really accommodate that. So we're going to have to put that together. It's going to need to go before legal for review and then back to you in order for you guys to approve that to being forwarded to the county. The 9th is next Wednesday.
And so I will be out of town on the 9th, the 9th, Tuesday and Wednesday. I'll be gone Tuesday and Wednesday and the rest of the week. I have mayor's conference on top of it. I think Lieutenant's going to be out of town also. So I didn't know if the staff could put it together in time, would the council be able to meet like this Friday, like at noon or something in that time frame to meet and discuss this and ratify it, have a special meeting?
We could also meet via Zoom, correct?
I'm looking at Carmen. Noon's a bad time for Carmen, but noon, because usually someone, around that time frame, I would think, sometime, noon to afternoon, early
I can
afternoon.
call in whenever.
Does that fit everyone's schedule?
Yeah.
Okay. Troy, will that work? Even if you can call in, I guess. I'm going to hope that's a yes. So, the majority of, Sarah, did you, okay? So,
Joe, can you hear me now?
Pardon?
Yes.
Yep,
Can you hear
okay.
me?
All right.
So I have a lunch meeting 12:30 Friday. So if we can do it a little before that, it's fine. A little bit after, that's fine.
12:30, you said?
Yeah, he has a lunch meeting at 12:30.
12:30, I have a lunch meeting
Okay,
at
so,
12:30.
11:30?
Would you, yeah?
Okay, 11:30 then? All right.
Done.
Roger?
I would just share as an outgoing member of the steering committee that 3 things were talked about. I'll boil it down to 3 things. 1, you're going with the recommendation of the steering committee, you're going out for an advisory vote. And at the end, we all realized it didn't matter where it was going to be. At the end of the day, what we really needed, we needed an option to place the new library facility. Having the perfect location and no voter support means nothing. Having a library, a new library to replace the failing library, that's what's important.
Okay. Anything else, Nicole? Or anyone else?
I just would hope that since we've made this decision that we are going to use Adam. I think it is important that education campaign, even with the advisory vote. And again, we continue to use him all the way through this process. I think it's unfair to put it, quite honestly, on the library steering committee alone, and we can use their services to hopefully be more effective.
Everyone in agreement? Okay. All right. Anything, Nicole, you have anything else that?
Gosh, that was a long conversation. So let me get this open again. I was going to update you on a couple of other items that were brought up in the last meeting. I followed up to get some information for you. So there was a question on the Ocean Boulevard property being developed by the current owner, and the owner has come to the city and retrieved the documentation. Our planning administrator reached out to him earlier, identifying the options that he had, and so he's been here to pick up some paperwork and start looking at that. Don't have a timeline for you, but there it
The
is
Ocean
in
Boulevard
motion.
piece of property is not the one we're talking about with the library.
No.
The Ocean Boulevard piece of property is the one we sold.
Yes.
And so we're talking about a developer or a owner that's what she's referencing.
Yes. And then there was a question in regards to the project that the Urban Renewal Agency funded for Restaurant O, and so just updating you there. It was noted that it was going to be completed by the end of August, and they do have confirmation that that is their intention, and they believe they're on that timeline. There was also a discussion regarding the FOG program, which came up mostly because of the library discussion, and the funding mechanism was there, and it kind of grew and expanded a little bit. But just an update there, we have roughly 10 to 12 that are in that program. We're still working, obviously, to get some more folks added to that. So still capacity and funding to help out there. It might be, come to you later, opportunity to expand it in next year if we're not getting enough folks involved. The larger question was the concern about the ordinance currently requiring those who had internal devices being checked monthly, and that is what's in the ordinance. It doesn't mean it can't be amended, but there is language in there that they can request a variance, and they are required to work with the provider to help with the cleaning of that, and that recommendation would come from the provider, generally, whether they should be monthly or quarterly, that kind of thing, and that will drive that variance process. So it's an opportunity for them to ask for that variance, but again, our code is living, so you can amend that if you'd like to. And then there's been some preliminary discussions about starting our work sessions back at the fire hall. They've done quite a lot of work there at the main station there in Elrod to bring us into compliance with having access for folks to attend remotely. Same kind of scenario with video and options there. So it does lend to a different kind of environment for a work session. It can be a little bit more easygoing and conversational than what this kind of more professional environment leads us to. But again, up to you guys what your comfort level is. If we have some maybe larger topics, we can always look back at this space. So still looking at just this one work session time.
Yeah, and it was my suggestion, so I want to let all the councilors know, because it was more casual at the time that we were having in there, and it was more interactive and not so formal. And this is great for council meetings, but on that was a little bit more interactive. So I thought if we could go back there, we weren't able to because we didn't have the camera set up and whatever else. The other thing is that we will, if at that time we were having 2 work sessions, I'm not advocating that by any means, but if another work session needed to be done, or we decide to have another work session, it wouldn't be in a conflict with the planning commission too. So anyway, that's the thought on that. So I'm not sure how the rest of you feel, but anyway, it's up to you.
Yeah, so if you're interested, we can definitely do some test runs to make sure we're ready to go there. Maybe not by our August meeting, but maybe September.
Yeah, I mean, we can do September. So is there an interest in going back to the fire hall for the work sessions, or you want to stay here?
Sure. I think the fire chief said he'd have cookies for us at the meetings, correct?
I was just gonna say so.
Sounds good to me.
All right. And, if it is something that, if we decide to go that way and it doesn't seem to work out, or people aren't, the counselors aren't comfortable there, we can come back. So, again, we're not set, right? Nicole?
Right. That was all.
The other thing on the FOG program, I'd just like to chime in. I think that we should change the variance, personally, not make it any more than, even if it's an internal, more than quarterly. I think, even twice a year might be optional, but I think it's better to start with at least quarterly. I'm not sure, Carmen. Yeah.
I would agree.
And I still think it needs to be regulated by whoever is doing the work, and that's where we need to lean. If that individual says on the paperwork, and I think we need to say that, if it says monthly or quarterly, then I think that's the route that they need to advocate and go. So that's what I was always intending, so.
Agreed.
Okay. Everyone all right with coming back to the ordinance for quarterly on that fog?
I think we should. If I don't want to make them work harder, I would prefer that we streamlined it.
Good. Troy, any comments?
No comments. I'm fine with whatever you guys want to do.
Sarah, I didn't ask you. You all right with that? Okay. All right.
Okay, we'll get to work on that.
Anything else?
Nope, that was it.
Roger? No last farewell comment as city manager? Okay. All right. Sarah?
This weekend, the United Way of Southwestern Oregon, which is the backbone for Southern Oregon Coast Pride, held Pride in the Park at Boynton Park. It was really well attended, super successful event. A shout out to all the people, Harbor and others, who helped put that event on. It was really awesome to see so many community members celebrating together. And then secondly, Roger, I thought a lot about what to say tonight, and I was thinking back on the first time I ever even really considered being a city councilor, and it was a Juneteenth event, the first Juneteenth event held at the Coos History Museum, and I went and stood by you, and you were standing on the outside of the crowd where you could see everyone and everything, so that you knew what was happening over here and what was happening over here and what was happening here, and you saw everything. And I think that's a perfect analogy for how you've been running this city. You see all of it. You see what's happening in North Bend. You see what's happening with the county as a whole. You see what's happening with local businesses, what's happening with individuals, and you have been an amazing leader for this city, and I want to thank you for your service.
Stephanie?
Nice report from our visitors and convention bureau. I appreciate that. Always love to see the news that's happening with tourism, and especially now in my capacity for my job, it's nice to see that what is happening in the tourism world is also carrying over through our airport, and that's very exciting. Also, appreciate all the work that the library steering committee and all the people involved in that have done to make this easier for us to try to get to that point. I know we're elected to do a job, as Troy said, and I think sometimes how we get there is a little different, but it is what it is, and I do also believe that simpler is better. So I appreciate all that. And now on to Roger. I probably was in a unique position many years ago when you transitioned from the police department to city manager, because I was a member of the media at that point, and I remember the conversations circling around like, what were they thinking putting this, but I'll tell you what, having that background and just having your experience just as a human being that grew up in the world, helping others, led to probably one of the best choices that the city has made. And I know I have worked for a board of many minds in the past, and I said I would never do it again. Because you see, and I'm going to go the wrong direction with this, the ugly, the bad, and the good. And I think when I came on as a counselor, I was a little bit nervous because we saw a little bit of the ugly and the bad at that time. But we also saw the good in our staff and the leadership at the city. And it started right at the top with someone who built an excellent team and carried us forward. And I would say, you know, this is goodbye from this position. I'm in a unique position because it's just going to be until we meet again, and that's probably tomorrow morning for our management meeting at the airport. So thank you so much for what you've done for the city. I didn't see one dry eye in here.
Lucinda?
Well, you know, I wrote a speech, right? So I'm gonna do my very best not to get emotional through this. So it's hard to believe that I worked with you in one capacity or another for the last 14 years. Our paths crossing when you became the newly appointed city manager and I the chamber president. Early on in my presidency, you challenged me to address a difficult topic, one that I thought I wasn't remotely prepared to address, but in your diplomatic way, reminding me that it was indeed my work to do. And looking back all those years ago, there's never been a time when you haven't risen to the occasion to do the good work on behalf of others, on behalf of community, on behalf of those who couldn't speak for themselves. You are a true servant leader, putting the needs of team and others first. The work has never been about you, but rather doing the greatest amount of good for the most amount of people. A skilled consensus builder, tackling the most difficult situations with tact and grace. And I've sat next to you in some of those meetings. Your capacity for work, always quietly working behind the scenes, and the pace you set early on has allowed this city to accomplish so many great things under your leadership. A new fire hall, a visitor center, a wastewater treatment plant, a Front Street blueprint plan resulting in development along the waterfront, the many housing projects. Quite honestly, there are too many to name in your 14 years, Roger. Your humility, your willingness to listen, and always being open to both sides of every issue has earned this city a great reputation. You, my friend, should be the standard for which we all aspire to become. Thank you for your 32 years of service to this community. Thank you for your friendship. I look forward to seeing the great things that you're going to accomplish in your new role at the airport. And I expect a flight to Portland really quick since you're leaving us.
Carmen.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and start with Roger as well in my comments. I guess my first interactions with Roger were when, building my first business, and there was a lot of guidance provided, and probably not some of my best days in terms of my own personal countenance. So I appreciate you giving me a second chance to work well with you, and over these many years that we've worked together, I have learned the content of your character and the amazing amount of support that you give those around you, whether it's your staff, the council, your friends, your family. You truly are someone I look up to, somebody that I aspire to be as calm and collected and knowledgeable and understanding and measured in response. You really, you make me want to be a better person and a better counselor. You've been uplifting to your entire team, to us. We've had many difficult decisions, and I feel confident making those decisions, in part due to your support of the facts and knowing that you will have our back when the decision is made. And that is something that makes this job so much easier. And I have to say thank you on a personal note for that, because I have felt very strong and confident because you're sitting with us. With that, I'd just like to thank you and your family for the many years of service that you have shared with this community. It is a gift, and while this job can sometimes be thankless, like you say, living in a fishbowl, lots of people can throw things at you or whatever you want to call it, but you have handled it extremely well, and this community thanks you. We thank you. Thank you. Moving on. The carts, I know we're talking about the carts. We were talking about different ways of funding various things. You know, we're helping people fund upgrades to the fog program, you know, through purchase of equipment. I was wondering if we could do that for some of the purveyors who have carts. If they're the smaller stores, let's say it's X amount of carts that will help with financing or something. Just one of those ideas. When it comes to the library, I feel like I have to say this. We're putting all this information out here based purely on, we don't have all the property for the places that we're shooting for, which is kind of scary. The one place where we do have property is the current location. And sometimes I think that that would be the least confusing thing to just ask for. Can we just build a new library? I have really laid a lot of my weight for the decision to go to John Toppitz for the tsunami preparedness factor. I still love that site. I know it is not the popular one, but you know, the location of the current library is good for a lot of different reasons, and it is the one place where we do have property. We don't have to ask, we don't have to buy, we don't have to make questions based on potential property purchases. So I know I don't want to throw everything out that we just said.
Hey.
I just have to say that. Whoop, sorry. All right. And I also just want to say thank you to everybody who's working on the library steering committee and in the library, library board. This has been a long process, and we have been through this already, as was stated earlier, and we will get through this, and I'm confident of that. And I know we're all fighting on behalf of Councilor Miles.
Yes.
So shout out to him. We're going to keep working on it, Rob.
I'm surprised he's not on there.
Yeah, that's all I have.
We didn't see it on the agenda.
True.
No, my brain died of loneliness. First thing, oh, I remember what it was. I usually talk about the state committees I'm on, but this time I'll focus on embarrassing Roger. So have to thank Dina first for letting us borrow him. A lot of time, of course, that we stole him from you. We appreciate you allowing us to do that. And thank Roger for the time we took away from bowling. Wasn't long after coming on in life, I've been fortunate to have a lot of good people around me to look to look at ways to better myself. Outside of family, it wasn't long after meeting you that kind of came to the conclusion that I want that level of excellence. I want to be able to be that. So in all the preparation I do for these different things and trying to find where I can get, trying to catch up to you. So I appreciate that you've been here, getting to watch you and learn from you. Don't think I'll ever manage your level of subtle patience.
Yeah.
But just appreciate you very much, and I look forward to seeing what you do with the airport, because I know it'll be great.
Troy?
Hi. Geez, I really feel like I should start out saying, Roger, you're a pain in the rear. No, you know, I've been fortunate enough to kind of been in the back seat, watching Roger coordinate between cities and counties, except for the last 10 years. And I have to admit, I was pretty excited about being able to work with him. So I'm also excited for him to start his new chapter. And I'm also excited for the new leadership that's going to come in for the city. I think we're in good hands, and I think that's part of his doing as well. So thank you for your service. And I'm sorry I didn't get to spend more time with you directly. Secondarily, I guess I would just like to say I was able to participate with both our federal representatives, Senator Wyden and Representative Valfoyle, came down over the weekend. Lots of good discussion. And I see some really promising things on the horizon for our community. And I'd like us to, I think the city's working towards it, both cities are working towards it. And we got lots of help at the federal level, at least voices that care about us. So anxious to see how we progress and move forward and grow our city. We've got some great developments. And that's it, just really positive, looking forward to how things move forward.
All right, thanks, Troy. Well, first of all, I want to remind everyone we have Wine Walk Friday. The food truck is happening at the Middle Casino this weekend. And then I definitely want to thank the library and the steering committee and the staff. This has been a long process, a difficult process, and it's not over by any means, but I want to thank you now, and after we get the library bond passed and after we get the library built, I will be thanking you again. So anyway, I also want to chime in a little bit more with Roger. I know I made some comments, but Roger's been the longest serving city manager, and he's been in that role for a reason, because he's been successful in leading us and advising us. Definitely keeping me calm. I never get too excited, but when I do, Roger's there to listen and keep me down the right path. And because so many accomplishments. And we've done that because of you and being able to get there, and you've been able to let us come up with all these goals and our expectations, and you've helped us facilitate that. And that's why the city has been where it is and successful, to the point that you even had a succession plan. You started 2 years ago with Nicole. And so, I mean, you've put everything in place, and you're very organized. Again, I'm like Stephanie. I am fortunate I get to keep working with you, so on just a different level. And we will get that flight. And once we do, then I will step down, and you guys can continue on. But anyway, I want to thank you for everything, Roger. As I said before, thank you isn't enough. That doesn't by any means explain and tell you how much it means. So thank you so much. We will cross paths. I'm hoping to see you here as a well, you can't, as an interested citizen, even though you live in North Bend. But we know that you'll come back, representing the area, which that's another thing. You've always cared about the area. It wasn't always just about Coos Bay. It was what's best for the area, and I think that was a great thing that you taught us all. It's not just about what's good for us is good for everybody. And Nicole, I look forward to working with you, and you've done great so far, and I know you'll do great. Roger did very well in choosing his succession. So thank you for everything. Anyone else? Anything? All right. With that being the case, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone, for attending.